I'm actually in the Teachers Language Development Centre. The course that we're looking at today, I developed with Pratima, who unfortunately can't be here today, and also with other course developers from ELL. There was a team of 4 of us. But I'm actually just going to show you the one module that I worked on sort of first as a model. Yeah? Okay, so today I'll just go through the background to our use of Google Sites, what issues there were, what the initial decisions were, and then I'd like to show you the first site and show you the different applications that were integrated into it. Then talk a little bit about our student feedback and then where we're going to go from here. Okay, so the course that we looked at is called the Communication Skills for Teachers. All diploma, all BA, BEd, all postgraduate diploma students, primary, secondary, do this course in various forms. The postgraduate course for the secondary teachers, which is the one that we're looking at, is delivered to about 1,300 students a year, so it's a big volume course. As you might expect, as you know, PGD secondary students are very varied. Some come straight from university, from their graduate courses. Some have been out in the working world for longer or shorter times. They also come from different backgrounds. Some of the students on this course are mother tongue teachers. Some have English language and literature backgrounds. So very, very varied different subjects. We had feedback on this course. I've actually been at NIE just a year. The feedback had happened before this from the student teachers themselves, from the lecturers, from management, that the course perhaps was not meeting all the needs all the time, and how could we do this better? And one solution for doing it better was to introduce a blended version of the course. The other thing that at NIE we need to take into account, of course, is the TE21, Teacher Education for the 21st Century, all these different thrusts in there. So things like learner autonomy, being self-directed learners, and so on. And finally, our student teachers themselves will be delivering courses through different modes. They have, in the schools here, they have e-learning weeks very often, as you know. So they may well be using e-learning and these platforms as delivery modes. So a good idea to expose them to these platforms. Just for your information, for the communication skills for teachers, there are these 3 areas of study. And we thought that these would lend themselves to, or they already do, lend themselves to being taught as different modules. So the voice and voice health is already a video-based module. Pronunciation is one module. Oral and written communication are actually 2 different modules there, and the use of language in the classroom, one further module. So for the new course, we've taken these into separate modules. We did a blended course. What that meant, or what that means at the moment, is that we are proposing to offer this course in 3 different possibilities. Students can study certain modules online only. They can study the same module by coming to their tutorials. It's a tutorial-based course. Or they can use the online materials in conjunction with the face-to-face tutorials. And the students will be given elements of choice within the course. They can choose, or they will be able to choose, to do 2 modules completely online if they wish to do so. Yeah? So it's a bit of a hybrid. Blended. So this one actually, this gave us another challenge because the online materials had to parallel the in-class materials, because the students might be doing both or they might be doing either, but they all ended up with the same exam. We needed to look at the students' needs, what areas they need to focus on this course and parallel those. And we also needed to look at organizational constraints, which platforms, and this comes now to the platforms, which platforms are promoted, if you like, by NIE, NTU, which platforms are accessible to our student teachers when they go out to their schools, and which platforms will give us the flexibility and meet our requirements as course tutors and course developers. So why did we go with Google Sites? First one, Google Sites has tons and tons of templates. So you have a big choice of how you want your site to look. It can also be customized, and CEL, I've seen for several courses, have done lovely banners at the top. I was looking at another Google site yesterday, Sally Ng's one, with this flying person with a book on the back. Also, we needed a platform that was easy. Easy for the technical developers, but easy also for people like me. I'm not a techie. I'm a teacher. And although I do believe in technology supporting teaching, that's not where I am, so I need a lot of help. But I also want to be able to do things myself. So the ease, the functionality. And Google Sites, as you will see, is A, it's free, and B, it comes with a whole range of different Google-type applications, all sorts of things that you can use in conjunction with the site to fit your course needs. And the last reason was to do with the status of Google Sites. MOE, the Ministry of Education, has adopted Google as I'm not quite sure what they call themselves, but like a Google hub. And they are giving special deals to all the teachers. They're promoting Google for use with the teachers. NTU is also going to maybe be proposing the same sort of direction. So CEL also thought it was a good idea to use Google Sites. So I took their advice. There are many, many platforms. And there was quite a bit of discussion amongst the course developers, some of whom are much more techie than I am, as to whether this was the best platform. And I think in the end, you can never actually find the best because it keeps changing. The goal line keeps changing with technology coming online all the time. But anyway, this is what we went with. Okay, so what have we got? The sample module, then. I'm going to show you little things for this. The sample module, the one that I started with, was the pronunciation module. I wanted to allow the students selectivity because some of the students have studied phonetics before. They know a lot about pronunciation. Whether they can do it or not is another matter. It is a wide area. There are issues of, it was a good module to start with because we wanted them to only hear Singapore voices, Singapore models, because it's standard Singapore English that we're aiming at. And I could do a lot of recording of local people to integrate into this site rather than stuff that's got all these angmos on it. We had to do it in parallel with the groups that were not doing the online module. This module was chosen as the first one because it's not directly assessed. The students' pronunciation is assessed in combination with their other oral skills, but there was no direct assessment, only of pronunciation. And also, pronunciation seems to lend itself to lots of different sort of activities. You want to have the students be able to record themselves. You want them to be able to listen. You want them to be able to watch videos, evaluate, and so on. So it allowed us to play with widgets. Okay, so I'll show you the module. So this is the pronunciation site. I'm a linear person, so I have to confess I went with a linear site. I'm not now, from the student feedback, convinced that a linear site was the way to go, because the students don't necessarily think in a linear fashion. So what I'm showing you is a pilot. It's showing you what Google can do, but Google can do much more than we've done with it, actually. Yeah? So anyway, so this is the introduction. And being good educators, what we wanted our students to do was see that there were overall objectives for this module, which are reiterated at the end, and then they assess to what extent they've achieved their objectives. They needed to know something about using the module, and actually one thing that we discovered was that these sites don't work as well with Internet Explorer. Quite a few of the widgets don't work too well. So we recommended that the students used Mozilla Firefox to access the site, although I believe they can use other browsers as well. And we wanted them to know that this was the equivalent of 2 tutorials. So it's actually 6 hours worth of materials. 1 hour of tutorial preparation, 2 hours of tutorials. Though the students themselves found that that was rather more than they anticipated. And because we wanted to know whether the students had actually looked at the site, we required them to do some blogging and some feedback. You can see here that it says there are 3 blog tasks. Well, there are 3, but we only asked them to do 1. And this, again, in the feedback, it is an issue. What do the students do to show that they have used and worked through the materials in a way that we can't see necessarily online, and we can maybe see better in class? You will see also at the bottom here, because I'll show you some issues with the site, that we drove them to Blackboard for their blogs. Because we had multiple tutorial groups using this site, and we couldn't actually at that time quite work out how to link different tutorial blogs, with eventually possibly 900 students in 41 tutor groups doing this at any one time. But I think this may be something that when Pratima does, or when CL does a session next week, they may be able to show you some of these things. So, I'll take you through a few pages, not all of them. The first one was here. We start off with getting them thinking about varieties of English. And this would be something they would have to do before their tutorial anyway. So they need to think about the different kinds of English that are used here, why they're used, when they're used, and are they appropriate. And one of the things we wanted to do, and still want to do, is to get the communication going between the students. So here it says, if possible, complete these discussion questions in small groups. So you could you could do your work online as individuals or as groups. Yeah? Then we embedded a text here, which is actually from one of the diploma courses, right over here, which looks at varieties of English in Singapore and implications for teachers. Then we looked at the issue of intelligibility, international intelligibility of standard Singapore English. I gave them an example, and then they were asked to think of some examples of their own, of where communication might break down. So trying to get them to engage with the materials as we go through. To move to the next page, they actually have to come back here. We then went on to some pronunciation features. And here, Google Sites, I mean, obviously it can hyperlink, all sites can hyperlink. So there's a hyperlink to a newspaper article for some background reading, and another article comparing standard American and international English. We then had a text which is used in the course, which I wanted to give them at the time. It's rather dense. But here, this one, we were able to embed it as a Google Doc. Yes? But it's complicated, so I wanted them to listen to it too. So we made an MP3 recording of the examples, spoken by a British speaker, me, and a Singaporean doing Singlish, so that they could compare how these sounded and what the differences were. I then wanted them to look at a Singapore speaker and look at some of the features from a video. I don't know how many of you know Adam Khoo or have heard of Adam Khoo. Most people have been here a little while. Yeah? A very good presenter, but he does Singlish very lovely. So they were invited to have a look at this video and to analyse some of the features that they found that might not be intelligible to somebody from outside of Singapore.
So where is the video? Is it also embedded?
No, the video is not embedded. It was. And then I found some documents about copyright and advising you not to embed YouTube videos. So we took the embedding out. I mean, actually, it's another of these very grey areas. But they said that you are much, much safer if you just link rather than embed. So now we've gone to linking the videos. Yeah. So yes, that's a good question, because again, you know, we have to think about these copyright issues, yeah? And that's why a lot of the recordings and things like that, as much as we can do ourselves, or texts that are from copyright free and so on. So once they've done that and thought about it, there are some suggested answers. So this is another little embedded Word document. Yeah? I won't show you that one. Then going down a bit further, we have a recording, another MP3, so we could embed that. This is actually of a real Singapore Sec 4 student doing the O-level, or practicing her O-level picture description. So very good for teachers, because it's a real situation. And again, I said they could actually choose which one they preferred to do. They can analyse that. And again, answers there. So trying to give them the opportunity to think, to digest the material, to analyse, but also to give them the opportunity for feedback from the site. There was no online tutor presence. So those are a few of the kinds of things that we were able to embed. Going down a page, we also wanted them to do some quizzes. Okay? So we were able to embed some quizzes. These are multiple choice quizzes. They were done with, what were they done with? My Studio, okay, a program called My Studio. And they actually have voice recordings and questions together. So you can combine video and the questions, you can combine voice and the questions, any sort of possibilities. So quite nice and flexible. These are, do you want to go?
Yes.
This one is looking at vowel sounds, yeah? And you have to decide which word you hear, okay?
Number 1, barn.
Okay, so was that this one or this one? The second one, correct, yeah? So I click that one, yeah? It's not very fast.
Number 2, barn.
First one or second one? First one, okay. And you can see whether you are correct or not. This is Rahman, by the way. There's people who know. This is Rahman. Whether they're correct or not. And at the end, actually, you can compare your results with everybody else's. Yeah? So the idea of a quiz there.
Is it for assessment or just for...
It's just for them to practice. Can they hear the difference? It's the problem with the long and the short vowels that are very common here. And then the second one is, it's looking at the consonant sounds that come at the beginnings and ends of words, another discrimination problem and a pronunciation problem.
Can you use those quizzes for assessment? I mean, technically, is it possible that their marks are automatically recorded somewhere?
This is not a learning management system, so there's no grade book that you can go
I
into.
understand that.
Could I print it out and would I know who had done it?
Yeah.
I wouldn't know who had done each one. Yeah. And actually that brings me to another, I mean, you saying that brings me to another point. One of the drawbacks of Google Sites is that you cannot tell who has been using the site for how long. Yeah, which is why we built in the blogs as well. Yeah. Because it's not a learning management system, it's a platform for
Does it give you any statistics about users? No,
it can't track users.
Actually, just to kind of clarify that Google Sites alone cannot track the users, but you can embed widgets within each and every page that can help.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
for example,
but in this case, she did not opt to do that. I mean, that would have added a layer of complexity that you may not want to have dealt with. And in this case, you know, her use is not so much to track people, but to get them to participate.
But it's a good question. So if I had wanted to know the results from individuals for this,
You could.
I could have done it. Okay, there's a technical answer.
Yeah.
Then there's links to websites and things like that, obviously, because there's so many resources for pronunciation out there. So I mean, one good way is being able to hyperlink to other resources. I'll show you one more page. This is looking at connected speech. So the students by now will have, if they've done this properly, they will have some idea of the phonemic script. So here, okay, does anybody know what that first one is, as long as they're not from ELL? What does that say? Asian languages person should know. No, okay. Well, the students hopefully would realise that that meant, yeah? So you can mouse over and see the answer. So you can actually do your answers like that. You know, you can have your question, the students can think about it, and then they can just mouse over and see the answers. Further down, we're looking at features of connected speech, what happens between words and stress and stuff. Here is a recording of somebody reading this passage here. Okay. So they need to look at it and listen to it as a model. Yeah? Notice the words that are stress, the pauses, and so on. And now they have an opportunity using Rockaroo, another widget. They can record themselves here, and they can listen and compare their recording with the so-called model. This recording, the way we did it, it doesn't save afterwards. Yeah? But if you wanted the students to save, I'm sure there would be a way of doing that, maybe using Audacity, doing it outside, and then they could compare. And it goes on and on and on. There's a lot of material, I have to say. There's a lot of material. We also did a little poll daddy. And finally, at the end, this is a Google form. And here, this is where, or one of the sources I used to collect feedback on this module. So here, I could get a whole table with the number of people who responded, how many people said they thought it very useful, and then their comments and so on. Because this was a pilot, they also had to do a more extensive form through SurveyMonkey, and for subsequent courses, we have actually linked the SurveyMonkey through here. Okay? And one other thing for other modules, one thing that we've put in here for their feedback is another widget called Linoit. Have you heard of Linoit? Linoit is dead fun. Linoit has online stickies. And you can take a sticky and then you can write a little note on it and you stick it on your board, so you end up with a board full of coloured stickies. Just for very brief feedback. Again, so they can see what other people have said about it.
What is it called again?
Linoit.
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 Linoit.com.
So how was the feedback here?
Okay, coming. So you can see, although this is a linear site, within this site we've been able to build in lots and lots of different modes and lots of different activities that the students can do. Okay, so yes, good question. What was feedback like? Okay. So we did focus groups with these students. About 140 students were invited to do these materials. About 69 of them actually either looked at the materials to a certain extent or used the materials. The things that they said, positive things that they said, were that they liked the variety. Yeah? They liked the convenience. Convenience often had to do with, I don't have to come to school that day except for your tutorial, so I'd rather stay at home and do it. And actually, convenience was a big factor. Quite a few came to class because I got a tutorial before and I got a tutorial after, might as well, you know. They liked the local relevance because we'd used the Singapore Voices, we'd used the Adam Khoo and so on video. They said they found the practice materials useful. They said they found it quite easy to navigate, they liked the link to the other resources, and they also said that they liked the instant feedback. Those were the positive things. A few quotes for your application. All right. What they wanted us to do, however, was this. They wanted us to break the materials into smaller chunks. I don't know if you noticed, but some of those pages still say, even though I've reduced the time, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Students find that a lot of time to spend on a page. This digital generation I read the other day can only concentrate for 1 to 2 minutes. So how to do this?
When you say page, do they mean page is too long, you have to scroll down, or they mean...
They meant they spent too much time. I told them they'd have to, at the top it said something like 25 minutes on this page, and then they go, oh, God. But they also said they didn't take that much time. So it's, but that sort of depends on how much they put into it, kind of thing. So it's very, how big is it, long and short. But definitely, and this is also from feedback from students this term, they find it heavy. Okay? Make the design, the use of colour, and so on more appealing. It is a bit of a muddy brown and so on, yeah. So we tried for this time. But they still said, actually what they've said this time, the groups that I've talked to this time, they said, it's so text heavy. We did a focus group with people who had taken one look at it and decided not to do it. And one of the things they said was, we looked at the first page and there was so much text. So we thought it would be easier to come to class. So this is a real, this is what's really happening. This is a real struggle for us. How do we balance it? How do we get the content over, get the instructions and the frameworking, but not make it seem too heavy? Tricky. They wanted more video, more audio. And they wanted more interactivity. And some students, I haven't spoken to them yet, but 2 students who chose to do one of the modules we're piloting this semester are coming to see me this Friday. And I know one of the things that they want to say, because they told their tutor, they said, we want to talk to her about community. We want to be able to talk to people. So that is another issue. How do you get your science building in community? And then positive reasons. Students actually like coming to class. They like working with their tutors. They like the feedback from their tutors. They like being with their friends. So, it's only another option. And the other thing that they said, oh no, not another blog, not another reflection. And that too is a valid point. We ask them to do this all over the place now. So those were things that the students said back to us.
One question, sorry. You said they liked the instant feedback. Was it in the model answers?
Yes, I think that's what they meant, yes. It must have been, because there was no other feedback.
I was wondering, I thought you had your tutor sitting
no, exactly. Because the other thing, if you're going to put tutor feedback on an online site, then it's going to be very, very costly, because effectively it's one-to-one feedback to students all the time.
Is it possible to share how many students choose purely the online? How many choose?
Yeah, it was about 59 of them. Yeah, 59 out of the 140. That was for this pronunciation module. It's very interesting that this semester we piloted 3 more modules. Oral communication, which was going to end up with a test of their presentation skills, written classroom communication, and language use in class, both of which came nearer to the end of the course. Only 2 students chose to do the oral communication online. 2. Interestingly, because the language use in class is the last session of the course, hey, whole classes are doing it. So, there are these things going on. Yeah. I can actually understand it. It's a kind of curious course to do in some ways online, because it's about communication. So when you do oral communication, you probably do want to communicate orally. But what the students that we talked to said was they thought it would actually work quite nicely as the base course materials, that the course materials would be the website, and then the tutor would draw from those. So that's another way to describe blended, actually. The developer, Pratima, is not able to be here today. She said things that she liked was the fact that she could integrate all these things, but also once we created one site, it was really easy to duplicate it for the other modules. She said she found as a developer the navigation and so on was very straightforward for her. And we both think it worked quite well in the sense that, I did the pedagogy and she did the technology. I told her what sort of things I wanted and then she went away and came up with them. So that sort of partnership worked very well. And I have to say, CEL gives you excellent support if you're doing any of these projects. They're really first class. So there we are, ticks on that. As we went along, we did actually realise some things. As I said before, you can't track the students through the whole site. Maybe you can track them on certain widgets, whether they've done it, but you can't see whether they actually spent their 4 hours on the site. Having said that, even if it's Blackboard or a learning management system, the students can turn on their computers and put it onto a page, and you still don't know whether their minds are there. So, some of us were owners of the site. That meant we could edit and change and so on. And what I found this time, because we had much larger numbers doing these pilot modules, was that you got to the end of your ability to upload your participants. We had to take the email addresses. We took the email addresses from Blackboard. You put them into the site, and the site sends an invitation because the student is by invitation. So the people who are viewing the site are controlled by the owners. I'm not absolutely 100% sure exactly how many, but I think it's around 150. We seemed to hit a limit then. And then another person had to take over and put the balance of the students in. The students complained about slow video streaming and slow streaming. And I mean, you could see almost with those recordings, it is quite slow. I don't know the answer to this. Anybody know an answer to this? Bandwidth, things like that. As I mentioned earlier, the site works better with certain browsers than others. And in this site, we haven't solved the community element yet. That's not to say there may not be solutions, but we haven't got any. Where we're going now is currently, at the end of this semester, we will have piloted 4 modules. Actually, that's the redeveloped materials. Next semester, we're going to offer certain groups the full new program. So they will do the blended version, and they will be separate from the people doing the regular version. And they will be given the outline, and they will be asked to look at the site and choose which modules they want to study online, which modules they want to study face-to-face, etc., etc. We are going to move the modules to a new platform because they need to come under one umbrella, Moodle, as a learning management system. Hopefully this will allow us to manage the site in a different way, manage the large numbers of students in a different way, and to build in some community things. The course still needs to be top and tailed because it's got the body but it hasn't got the start and the end. So next semester we're going to trial a full version, probably again with about 140 or so students. If that goes okay, then the plan is to go for the whole lot from January 2012. And as we're going along, because there are different versions of this communication skills course, we're sort of sharing across and always learning about the best practice from the other versions of the course as well. And the other thing, of course, is it gives us opportunities, as we're all here in this university, we have to write and publish for writing and publication. So it's all gone through so far it's gone through the IRB, and so the students all give their consent, and we can use their feedback and stuff like that. Okay. That's the quick flip through. Any questions? Any technical questions? Please direct those ways. Any non-technical questions? Okay, try.
Question is, what proportion proportion is face? Let's say they choose a blended version.
Yeah.
Is there, say, how many hours face to face, how many hours on?
Each of the online modules will be the equivalent of 2 tutorials. And they will be allowed to choose to do 2 online modules completely online without coming to tutorial, plus the voice health one anyway, isn't he? Yeah? So 2. So it's about 40%. About 40%. And the assessments at the moment will stay the same. They won't be done online, although initially I had planned that they would actually do their video presentations online, and they would go into various places, do a presentation, record it, upload it, reflect on it, and that would be their assessment. But that's a bit in the future yet. Yeah.
Is there any discussion board or something like this?
There isn't. No.
So they don't submit anything?
The only thing that they are submitting if they're doing an online module
forms,
is the blog.
The blog?
A blog. So a reflection on what they have learnt during the module and how they can apply it and so on. Right at the beginning I showed you. How's it done? It's actually done through Blackboard at the moment. The reason, my understanding, the non-technical understanding was that we had 7 different tutorial groups and we wanted them to blog within their tutorial group. So that meant putting in 7 different sort of blog widgets or something. And that all sounded far too complicated. So in the end we decided we'd just get them to blog through Blackboard because they already had their blog sites set up there.
Okay.
Yeah. But actually when the students on the CST blog, it's not really interactive. They just do it. They don't actually do much.
I'm just wondering, because you do have practice activities, does the tutor have access to the recordings, for example, that are made by the students? So we can't kind of monitor what they're doing or give them feedback. Let's say they do a recording.
No, they don't. They don't have that. That's that on this at the moment as the site is. No, the tutor does not go in. The tutor, I mean, one of the things is logistics, because the tutor is also doing their face-to-face tutorial. It's not a substitution. So the tutor has still got the face-to-face hours. So we decided not to require tutor time for this, apart from looking at the blogs, because many of our CST courses are actually taught by part-timers, and then it becomes a big lots of issues with payment. How much do you pay them for looking at the site as well as doing the tutorials and so on?
It seems to me that the students who are opting to do the face-to-face in a mode would get a bit more help in terms of feedback from the tutors with them.
That's what they say. That's why they say they want to come to class, yes. They also get feedback from their peers. Yes, that's true. But other students, you see, will say, I've studied the IPA. I've studied the IPA. I know my phonetics. I know my phonology. I don't need to do it again in the same depth as we do in class. So they can look at this and they can refresh, and they can consider some of the issues that they may not have covered. They can select. Yeah? Others, I had another. Actually, I was teaching the primary group as well, and some of them were having problems with their pronunciation. So I gave them access to this as supplementary extra practice material. So it actually does provide quite a bit of flexibility in that way.
Except that for pronunciation, feedback on accuracy is quite important. They might not be able, just by listening to themselves alone, be able to pick up what exactly the problems with the pronunciation is.
But the other thing is that the pronunciation feeds back into their oral presentations. So when they're in class and practicing their oral presentations, you can also give them some feedback on aspects of pronunciation if it's serious, yes. And they had the models to compare with as well. I mean, one other option is actually in Christine's version of the course, they do a voice blog. So it's a voice recording for their blog, and they do, it's on Blackboard. So you could.
And the tutors give feedback, and their peers give feedback. It's accessible by the whole tutorial.
Yeah. So that could be something that was adopted for this course. Is not in this course at the moment. And then both those in tutorial and those outside could do it, and the tutor could assess them all.
Would we pay part-timers then, no, for this?
This is a question to which I haven't got the answer.
No, like let's say part-timers do 6 hours. I mean, 60% of the course face-to-face.
No, the tutor. They see at the moment it's not expected that the tutors would do 60% of the course face-to-face, because different students would choose different. So the tutors would still do all the course face-to-face. It's to give them more choice, actually, and it gave us an opportunity as course developers to relook at the materials for this course, to bring them up to date, to bring them into a mode that's more appealing, hopefully, to the students.
If I could share 3 things really quick. If you want to, by the way, I'm Ashley. I take care of ECL. If you want to access, because Linda's sites are more or less by invitation only. Yeah. If you would like to visit other Google sites which are more open, you're free to visit mine. I put the URLs back there. Unfortunately, the ink is running low. These are the shortened URLs. bit.ly/MID is a master's course that I just finished facilitating this semester. The second one is at Site 2, which was which started in October 2009. Yeah, but both are open, and you're free to see how I've used Google Sites for the teaching of facilitating of 2 very, very different courses. Yeah. So that's one thing. The other is, if I may just put a little bit of input to the issues that seem to have emerged. One is the issue of providing feedback, yeah, to our learners, and the other has got to do with the overall design. In the case of feedback, you invariably, no matter how you design a course, your student teachers are going to say, hey, we value the face-to-face component. I mean, that's what teaching is about. Yeah, but if I may add something, what I do is I monitor every day other instructors in other IHLs and in schools throughout the world, what they're doing, and they share this via Twitter, via Facebook, and via their blogs. And something that has emerged in line with what we call the new media nowadays is something called flipping the classroom. You may have heard of Salman Khan. He's somebody who started his own video resources, and he has suggested a strategy called flipping the classroom. The current classroom, unflipped, is the teacher provides content in the classroom, right? And they do homework at home. He has suggested flipping the classroom, where they learn the content at home, typically, and he's a math expert. Yeah, he provides online videos that show them the steps, shows them content at home. They do it at their own time. Okay? And when they come to the classroom, that's when they actually do the so-called homework. That's where they actually practice. Because that is where they need the most help. That's where they need the most monitoring, the most one-to-one or in small group work.
Yes.
So he flips the classroom. The teaching is done at home. The practice, the consultation, the feedback is done in class.
And that fits very nicely with our tutorial system, because they are supposed to be reading and
teachers
preparing.
all around the world are figuring out, that's kind of a difficult thing to do, because we are taught the upright triangle, the normal classroom. Is kind of difficult to conceptualize how to flip it, but this model is actually very simple. Just turn it upside down. It does take a bit of effort. The parents or other stakeholders need to buy into that idea, because they are actually learning at home. They'll question and say, why aren't you teaching in class? But that's something to consider when you factor in the design. The third thing I'd like to share is the way we in IHLs, Institutes of Higher Learning, typically design our courses. We tend to have content at the core and socialization at the periphery. When you want to take advantage of social tools, you've got to flip it the other way around. The core has got to be social, the content is almost periphery. To give you an example, let's say we wanted to learn about photography. Yeah? If we took a formal course, the core would be content. There would be lesson 1 you learn this, lesson 2 you learn this, lesson 3 you learn that. But there's another way to learn photography, which is to just get a camera, yeah, and mix around with other photographers of different levels, and you learn socially. Yeah? If you want to take advantage of social tools like Twitter and Facebook, what's got to be at the center is the socialization. It's the socialization which enables the learning of the content. So in a way, you've got to flip that as well. Otherwise, you'll find a huge gap between what you're trying to do and the content. If you want to, the bottom line is this: I think if you want to take advantage of social tools, the core has got to be social, and the content surrounding it, not the other way around. If not, you're always going to find this tension between what you're trying to do and the feedback that your students give you.
Yeah. So, any other questions before we thank Linda? No? All right. Thank you very much, Linda. It's a token of appreciation from CEL.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's session.